So one of the things that has changed through my golf journey is what's in my bag. So I thought I would do a what's in the bag today, just to talk through my current setup and how it's changed as I've improved at golf or as my handicap has dropped as well, what those changes have been. And I'm going to run through two things: what I use to play, so my play setup, but then also what I've got in my bag that helps me with my practice. So I'm going to cover that as well. Another reason that I'm quite excited about the top of the bag stuff that I'm going to cover is because in a few weeks I'm going for a QI10 fitting, and I've got some questions about the top of my bag. So I've got driver, 3-wood and 4 hybrid. Driver is the Stealth 2 Plus with the Venter shaft, which is really cool. I mean, it looks amazing. So this is stiff, and that's the same for my 3-wood as well. And that was a big change for me with this, this change in bag from last year. My previous clubs, both for the longer clubs in the bag, so the top of the bag, were a regular flex. They're now a stiff flex, which was a big shift. But also, and I'll get onto them in a little bit, the shafts in my irons and wedges changed as well. So I went from graphite to steel, which just felt like quite a bit of a graduation. I didn't realise it, but there was quite an impact in actually shifting from graphite to steel. Again, wanting to try and match my swing as it was evolving through that journey, and the swing speed in particular, it then became really key, sort of clear to me how key equipment is and how key it is to also be fitted as well, to make sure that it's matching your swing speed. So top of the bag, the questions that I have got is this the right setup for me? So as I mentioned, I've got driver, 3-wood, 4 hybrid. And initially, if I just had up to a 6-iron, as I mentioned in my last video, then I added driver and 4 hybrid, and then went on a little bit later to add 3-wood. And these were just choices where I just went to the shop and sort of thought, you know what, I'm going to go for that and that, because maybe people have recommended it, or it feels like that's the right next steps. And then also I'm going to add in a wood because I feel like we should, and so I'm just going to go 3-wood. I didn't really look at 5-wood, 7-wood, the other options, whether maybe other than 4 hybrid, would a 3 hybrid work better, and so on. I just sort of pulled it off the shelf, to be honest, because again, I didn't really know what I was looking for. I just knew I was trying to fill out my bag and had maybe picked up tips or sort of picked up what other people had and thought that I'd give that a go too. So what I'm really looking forward to in a few weeks with that QI10 fitting is not only looking at the impact that maybe shifting to the QI10s could have from the Stealth 2s and how these perform. I've heard they're a lot more forgiving, which, you know, we'll always take. But also, I'm just curious to see, is this the right setup at the top of my bag? Or is there maybe some changes to be made from, say, 3-wood to 5-wood, which I know at the minute, the reason, again, I'm keen to sort of explore whether 3-wood is the right club in the bag for me, is that I'll use it a lot more off the tee in the summer, where maybe driver would go a bit too long. But I'm yet to really feel confident with this off the fairway. So I've heard a lot more that maybe a 5-wood could fit better therefore than the 3-wood, and give me more choices both off the tee but also length on that second shot into the fairway as well. And then as we move down into the irons, for my, I'll just pull out my 7-iron, for 5, 6 and 7-iron, I've got the P790s. Again, absolutely love these, because not only did I feel a real difference when it came to actually moving from graphite to steel with that accuracy into the green, but also just feeling like my swing and the speed that I'd been able to get to as my swing had evolved and I'd been working on it, it really felt like these were then the clubs that actually matched that. And again, loved getting the chance to go for a fitting and really be able to make sure that that was the right choice. Because I think if I hadn't have gone for that fitting, I probably would have stuck with graphite, not really knowing that actually maybe shifting to steel and sort of making sure that, again, the sort of shaft matches my swing speed would have been the best thing to do. So I've got the P790s for 5, 6 and 7, but then as we get down a little bit lower, so with the 8, 9 and pitch and wedge, I've got the P770s. And the reason for this is that the P790s, so my longer irons, are a little bit more forgiving, whereas on the shorter irons, going from 8, 9 and pitch and wedge, I just felt a little bit more confident hitting these, and so we went for that split with the P790s in the longer irons, but the P770s in the 8-iron, 9-iron and pitch and wedge. And then I actually used to have an approach wedge in this pitch and wedge style, so the P770s, but I recently changed that because I've gone to the MG4 wedges, tailor-made, oh, can't get them all out at once, MG4 wedges, and I've got a 58, 54 and a 50. So this 50 acts as, it swapped out my approach wedge, and I just really wanted this style. I wanted to be able to feel like I could maybe again stand over certain shots and have a bit more finesse, have a bit more confidence in that finesse. Even if it's not quite there yet, I'm hoping that again, when you feel like these are clubs that you're choosing for the longer term, they're not only what suit you in that moment, but also feel like things that you can grow into as well. And I think as a theme across my clubs, and I'll get to putter in a second, one thing I've always looked for is just what helps me feel more confident. When I'm standing over the shot, what helps me have that sense of confidence in the club that I'm choosing, but also what I'm looking down at. As silly as that might sound, it just really feels like that can have quite a big impact. But then lastly, putter. I absolutely love this putter. So I've got the Spider Tour X putter. Changed to this a few months ago. And again, it was just a feel thing. Absolutely love the feel of putting with this putter. It seems weird, and it's a funny thing to possibly notice, but that is so big for me, both in terms of that confidence when you're standing over a putt and how it feels. I'm definitely more of somebody that goes for this style. I have experimented with more of like the blade putter before, and it just didn't suit my putting stroke. I didn't feel as confident standing over them, and I definitely noticed there was a bit of that toe hang going on. It really just feels nice. It feels so good, and you look down, you can feel confident. It's got the line, which again helps me with my alignment over putts, but I just really feel that when I actually make a putt, it feels good off the putter face, and that gives me confidence in my putting. So that is my play setup. I'm now going to touch on what I use to practice a little bit, and then I'll get into the ball that I use, glove that I use, etc. But for now, practice-wise, the big thing that I actually do, which again, I don't know if this is normal or just something that I do as a bit of a golf nerd, is I have what I call a short game stash. So this is where, and it will touch on the ball that I use a little bit, this is where I keep the scuffy balls. You know when you've played with a ball for a little bit and maybe it's been in the bunker and it's got a mark on it now, or you've played with it so much this one actually a little bit of the casing is coming off, which is definitely how much I've used it, not the ball itself. I'll just keep hold of these because again, when it then comes to practicing short game, I feel like I'm using the ball that I use on the course, although it's not a brand new ball by any means. It definitely just allows me to feel like I can practice with something that is similar to what I'm using on the course, and especially out of the practice bunkers. And it just sort of fills that gap for me between using, not quite going as extreme as using a brand new ball out the bunker, but also it's a little bit more realistic to how I play on the course than using a range ball. That ball is the TaylorMade TP5. So I probably started using these, I'd say about a year ago, and I've never played with a ball that has grabbed the green as well as these. There's just something about the confidence that that gives you. I know particularly for myself, even in the summer, I would be able to say zap a pin or zap my target, choose the carry distance that I'm going to use, and therefore, choose the club that I'm going to use to get me there. And a prime example is actually I was playing in this competition, an open, with a couple of friends of mine, and there was a nearest the pin in 2 on the 18th, and I took a 9-iron, zapped the pin, knew I sort of had to carry it the distance that I was taking, and it just grabbed it. It was right near it, and I actually won nearest the pin because again, it was like you see the pitch mark and you see the ball is not far from it. And I just find, I've had that all the way through the bag, even with actually, through to like the longer irons as well, even with rescue. But I also think that's partially because I have quite a high ball flight with my rescue, so that probably helps. But it just gives me confidence that when I'm choosing the distance and the club, that when I hit that, it's actually going to grab the green rather than maybe go running on through. So although you feel like you've played the right distance, you maybe feel like it's not actually sort of been receptive to that and grabbed the green as much. So that is the TaylorMade TP5. So back to the practice. The other thing that I've added in lately is the SwingPlate. So I'm absolutely loving this. It comes in this nice bag, which is helpful because it's quite a heavy little number. So it just means that I can sort of slip it into my practice bag. And again, I would just use this with my alignment sticks that I've got here, another practice aid that I always carry. Obviously wouldn't carry these if I was going out onto the course because this in itself is a little bit of a workout. But I just, again, for this, I've shown it in sort of previous videos and on Instagram and such, that I'll use this as a swing aid. So when I'm practicing on the range, something else that has evolved for me over that time is just my intention when I'm hitting balls on the range. And I find now if I am going to be doing it, I want to really make sure that every minute I'm putting in on the range is having the biggest impact it can do on my swing and what I'm hoping to work on. And I just find that by having this, first of all, it helps me with certain drills where, say, if I'm trying to swing under it, again, this is sort of not the right angle, obviously, but you'd set it down, align it to the club that you're hitting, use it maybe to help with that over the top because you want to swing under it. Or actually what I'm going to do in a bit of my practice is the takeaway. So I'm going to try a bit of a bold one. I'm a bit nervous about this. I think it's like the Tommy Fleetwood looking drill where he's got it behind him, and I could set it to the angle that if I'm getting my rolly wrists, I would hit the club. So hit the stick. So it's just going to try and train me to not roll my wrists because otherwise I'm going to hit the alignment stick with my club behind me. So those are my practice sort of elements of the bag. I've got my short game stash, so those scuffy balls that I'll keep back to use in my short game practice, especially out of those bunkers. Got my alignment sticks, which I'll use now with my SwingPlate, or previously it would have just been for alignment, obviously on the mats and stuff for the range. But that really, for me, it's just making sure that if I am coming up to practice, rather than say coming up to play, I just want to have these things in here so I can then feel really intentional with my practice and that time that I'm putting in. But I find that just by having, all of these elements in the bag, both for my practice and my play, it's definitely been something that's helped me progress on that golf journey. And I'm very excited to see what happens in that fitting in a few weeks for the QI10, not only to see the impact that maybe a more forgiving driver and longer clubs will give me, but also that question of, is this setup, the 4 hybrid, 3 wood and driver, the right choice for me, or might we be making a change? So I'll be filming that as well, and we can find out then if we'll be sticking with this setup or changing it. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear, what is your top of the bag setup? Have you got woods, hybrids? Obviously driver in there is a given, maybe it's not, let me know. But also in terms of that next setup that you've got for the rest of the bag, at the top end of things, what else do you have there? 3 wood, 5 wood, different hybrids? I'd love to hear in the comments below, and I'll see you there.